Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shanti in Place. It's so lovely to have you. We'll get started in just a moment, but I wanted to just let everyone know, I mentioned this at the end of the call last week, if you were present for that. We're trying something a little bit different. We've been having some issues with recording on Zoom, and what we're trying to simultaneously have this session on Zoom as well as have it live streamed on YouTube, and then having the recording sort of living on YouTube. So I just wanted to let everyone know that. I'm not sure if an alert appears on your screen, but please be aware that we are kind of streaming now, and this is being recorded. And so totally understand if folks have different levels of comfort around that. If you'd feel more comfortable turning your camera off, you're welcome to turn your camera off. If you'd like to leave it on, please do go ahead and leave it on. It's always nice to see familiar and new friend faces. But I would be remiss to not let you know that. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. If you have strong feelings about it that you don't feel comfortable sharing here, please drop me a line over email and we can always reevaluate, because our number one commitment and priority is holding this space as a meaningful, safe, comfortable space for everyone. And as always, we invite you to use the chat box to put forth any questions, comments that you may not be able to share right now. So let's begin with our abbreviated sit, our small meditation. So if you could, please go ahead and take a moment to find a comfortable seat, whatever that means for you, whether you're seated on the floor or in a chair. The most important thing is for you to be comfortable, at ease, focused, alert, awake. So take a moment to make any adjustments that you need to make. Please go ahead and close your eyes, or if you feel more comfortable keeping the eyes half closed, you can soften the gaze. We'll begin our practice by taking 3 deep breaths together, inhaling deeply through the nose and then exhaling deeply through the nose or through the mouth as you feel comfortable. We'll start with 1 deep breath in and out. Again. One more time. Now allowing the breath to find its own natural rhythm, natural pace. Not controlling or manipulating the breath in any way. Simply tuning in to the rhythm of the breath as it exists in this moment. Noticing the breath with awareness. And perhaps, if we feel inspired, with the texture of gratitude or appreciation. Noticing the easy flow back and forth, in and out. reminding ourselves that that ease, that comfort, that stability is always available to us, that we can always return to the breath. Remembering that we always have the precious gift of discernment, viveka, and giving ourselves permission to exercise that discernment today. To discern how comfortable we're feeling and where we'd like to go in this meditation. And knowing that we can always come back to this breath, this place of safety and stability. Continuing to notice the breath gently, with ease, bringing the awareness now to the heart space, perhaps bringing a hand or both hands to this region to softly graze the chest, to connect more deeply with the beating of the heart. Bringing to our heart's eye now, to our mind's eye, to the picture of awareness, bringing an image or a memory, or perhaps just a feeling of being safe, of feeling cared for, of feeling contentment. Keeping the eyes closed, remembering we can always come back to our breath, fixed in this place. Let us silently ask a question. O contentment, O friend, what have you come to teach me? We can stay right here, or exercising that discernment if we feel comfortable and ready. We can now shift the picture in our heart's eye with intention and purpose, bringing to our heart's eye now an image, a memory, a feeling of sorrow, perhaps of anger. Taking a moment here to acknowledge that this may be a very difficult place to sit in. And owning and exercising that discernment, that beautiful gift of viveka. We can choose to remain here. We can choose to return simply to the breath or to that place of contentment. Or if we'd like to, with eyes closed, silently within the heart, we can ask a question. O sorrow, O anger, friends, what have you come to teach me today? Holding some space here for whatever response may or may not be there. If the response is silence, appreciating the depth, the power that is available to us in silence. Breathing through whatever we're feeling or experiencing in this moment. Bringing our awareness more intentionally back to the breath, accepting without judgment or a need to control any distractions within or external. Perhaps committing ourselves to that question and whatever response may be there for us. Oh friend, what have you come to teach me today? We'll take 3 final deep breaths. Inhaling deeply with purpose, perhaps with gratitude and appreciation, and exhaling with the sacred sound of this syllable Om, the vibration of unitive sound, infinite possibility. Gently now opening the eyes if we haven't already done so. Bringing our awareness, our consciousness, whatever we're feeling or experiencing in this moment, back to our gathering, back to our group. Thank you again for joining us for another Shanti in Place session. Today's session is a little unusual, but the times that we're living in are quite unusual. Today we're going to switch gears a little bit, and whereas we usually look at Shanti, peace, in the sense of going within, and so much of our discussion, so many of the principles that we discussed are tools or resources for going more deeply within. We're going to shift gears, in a sense, to now face outward. And I say in a sense because there really isn't a separation between going within and what we bring with us when we face the world. In fact, as many of us are acutely aware, there's a powerful idea that we can't really meaningfully speak about peace unless we're also speaking about justice. We can't enjoy the place of peace without working towards justice. And in the paradigm of yoga philosophy, this also has a parallel because we can't really speak of Shanti without addressing her beautiful sister, Dharma. So Dharma, which is translated in so many ways, but we can also understand it as justice or right action, goes hand in hand with Shanti. So there's a beautiful, quite well-known teaching from the Bhagavad Gita, from the second chapter. It actually forms, in one sense, one of the really kind of core essential messages of the Gita. This idea of karma yoga, of engaging in the world, and I'd like to today speak about karma yoga as a way of understanding social activism or social justice. Karma yoga gives us a way of approaching that activism, that leaning into, that facing outward towards the world, but a way of doing it as a yoga practice. So we might call this enlightened activism. And there's this beautiful teaching that you see on the screen here. Karmani evadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhur ma te sangostva karmani. This is Krishna speaking to Arjuna, one of the very first and most pivotal lessons. He says to Arjuna, you have a right to perform your dutiful action. Arjuna was a warrior. That meant fighting on the battlefield. You have a right, an adhikar, to perform dutiful action, but you have no claim over the fruits of that action. You should neither consider yourself the cause, or we can say the sole cause of the results of those actions. So you are not the all in all cause of that fruit, of that result. But nor should you give up, abandon, not perform dutiful action, because Krishna reminds us both are forms of attachment. So let's dig in a little bit more deeply, and both in the interest of time, but also to honor the very individual, personal ways that we all negotiate this. I want to just touch on these concepts, but I want to invite you to reflect on them more deeply throughout the week and throughout the ways that they show up for you in your life. So first, the first part of the Gita verse is the side that talks about our right to action, our right to dutiful action or activism. Karmani adhikara. And this word adhikara is such a beautiful, powerful word. I've just been reflecting these last couple of days on how much is packed into this one seemingly simple Sanskrit word, adhikara. It's usually translated as right, but we can understand it on at least three levels. So three levels that I want to just touch on. First, we can understand adhikara as a right, that you have a right to activism. You have a right to social action. No one can stop you from doing that. That is your right. You're entitled to it. On another level, perhaps might even say a slightly deeper level, adhikara is not just our right in the sense of what we can do, but in a deeper sense, it is what we must do, what we are called to do, what we have a moral and ethical imperative to do. Adhikara in this way is not just a right, but a responsibility. And so much of the Gita is Arjuna backing away from his adhikara in this sense, backing away from his responsibility or his obligation or his moral imperative, because it's too murky, it's too difficult, it's too painful and emotional and raw. And Krishna, time and again, turning Arjuna back to that place of embracing responsibility, embracing obligation and duty and call. And along those lines, the third level that we might think about adhikara is adhikara as our qualification, adhikara as that which we have been empowered, we have been equipped, that if we look at it from a devotional perspective, perhaps, that the divine has blessed us with and given us gifts. And so, yes, it's a responsibility and an obligation, but it is also an opportunity to lean into our gifts, our qualification. And I love this definition of adhikara because it also invites reflection on how that's going to show up differently for all of us. How there's no one size fits all way of doing activism, of being an activist. Sometimes we say, well, I'm not an activist, I'm a scholar. I'm not an activist, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not an activist, I'm XYZ. But we all can be called to be holders of spaces of justice and activism, even as that shows up very differently, that looks differently for me and for Mercedes and for Somya and for so many others who I can't see your faces and names right now, but for all of us in so many different ways, right? So now that's only half of the equation. The second half, and in some ways I would challenge us to say the harder part, the part that's easy to talk about but so difficult to do in practice, is the second half of the verse, where Krishna says you have a right to your action, but ma phaleshu, never to the fruits or the results. And we might hear that and think, well, that doesn't make any sense. Of course I should care about the results. Of course the results are mine. I put in the work and they're my results. And why should I be ignorant of that or irresponsible even? And so what Krishna is suggesting here and what I'm suggesting here is not irresponsibility. It's not a state of kind of bland stoicism of not caring about what happens, but it is asking ourselves some really hard questions. And so again, both in the interest of time and in the interest of letting us all sit with this for as long as we need to sit with this, I just want to ask some questions. So Mahapaleshu invites us to ask a question about motivation or questions about motivation. We can ask ourselves, what is motivating me? What is calling me to put that statement out on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? What is calling me to join in the protest or not join in the protest? What is calling me to engage in the conversation with my colleague or not? Is it the work itself? Or is it some sense, even subtly, of the glory, the credit, the applause, being noticed? Would I still be called if no one saw me there, right? Would I still go to the protest if my friends and family and colleagues don't know that I'm at the protest, right? No easy answer, but again, putting that question out. Likewise, a question of commitment. Am I committed to the fight because the fight is a virtuous fight? And here I'm using the language of the Gita. I don't necessarily mean fight in a physical sense all the time, but fight in the sense of the struggle, the challenge, the opportunity. Am I committed to that? Or am I committed to it? Yes, but also subtly committed to the idea of being victorious and being on the winning side, right? What if there's not even a likelihood of victory? What if I'm up against odds that mean that, practically speaking, I'm not going to, maybe in my own lifetime, see the direct results or change? Am I still committed to the fight, or do I just say, what's the point? And this is where hope and expectation comes in, right? And expectation, of course, is so tricky because it's so intimately related with attachment. But it's also a natural kind of, it's a natural thing to hold. But do we hold expectation in the sense of hope? Perhaps sometimes even hope against seeming hopelessness? Or do we go into it with a fixed mindset and a mindset of entitlement that I'm putting in the work, and so the result should happen and must happen. And if the result doesn't happen in the way that I need it and want it to happen, if it doesn't look exactly as I expect it to look, all bets are off. And what was the point? And I just burn out and get frustrated, right? So again, an invitation to think about that. And as we go deeper and the questions become a little bit more confronting, I hope you'll join me in asking those more difficult questions. What is actually my role here? If when I say I'm an activist, does that mean that I'm aspiring to be an instrument of something or even someone bigger than myself, whether that's a community, whether that's a cause, or whether that's some sense of divinity or purpose or the universe? Am I willing to see myself as an instrument, sometimes a nameless, faceless instrument? Or does my participation depend on me being a hero, even subtly, or thinking of myself as a fixer, as a savior? And especially in this moment where the injustice that we're addressing is so much specifically located in the history and current deeply entrenched violence and inequity as directed towards Black lives. For those of us who are not Black, like myself, this is a really difficult question to ask. And subtly, am I setting myself up to be a savior of these other people in a way that removes their agency and removes their dignity, right? Difficult question, but we have to ask it. And on the in one sense most ultimate spiritual philosophical level, what is my consciousness? Where is my consciousness at when I'm performing this work? Is it truly the consciousness of service, of seva, or of devotion, of bhakti, of karma yoga? Is it a yoga consciousness, a consciousness of making connections and seeing myself in service to the larger whole? Or if I'm honest with myself, is it located even subtly in a place of ego, in a place of doership? The Sanskrit word, one of the Sanskrit words for ego is ahankar, which literally translates to I am the doer. So let us ask ourselves these questions. And finally, I just want to leave us with this image of what I think this verse suggests, which is we have a right to plant the seeds. We have a moral imperative, even a call to plant the seeds, to tend the garden. But the fruit is not ours, or at least we can say it's not ours alone, right? And I love the imagery of a community garden, because a community garden doesn't mean that we're apathetic or indifferent. It doesn't mean that non-attachment is the principle. Therefore, I'm going to half-heartedly approach this garden. No, we're fully present. We're active. We're dynamic in caring for this garden. But even and especially as we do that work, we remind ourselves the fruit that will come of this I may never taste that fruit myself, but it is for the good of our community. It is for those who will come after me. It is for ultimately the glory of our connected family and our divine parent. So I want to just invite us as our reflection to sit with that, to ask ourselves those questions, and perhaps to try to approach, I won't say whether or not to be activists, but how to be activists in this moment through the lens of this karma yoga, through the lens of being this gardener activist. So with that, we'll hold some space. If folks have to go, that's totally understandable, but we'll hold just a few minutes, a few moments perhaps, for anyone to share a question, a comment, a realization, or perhaps just what's top of mind and top of heart for you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the reflections and for the letter you sent this morning also. I really, really like it. I have a question on, I guess it's a belief. While we are in meditation and you are guiding us today, you are asking whether we feel comfortable on going to this space, that other space, who immediately evoked in me, may this have a power by itself. The fact of my meditation goes to spaces there. You know what I mean? I'm wondering, and because normally when I do meditation, I try to peace myself and even selfishness, if you want to find the bliss, if I could, to be in that perfect, wonderful, painless, happy, endless moment, right? But now today is like discovering a secret life. I don't know, a secret space in which you can do even more than you thought you could. Okay, I leave it to that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. I don't know if I can address it so much as just appreciate it and also just point out, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to, especially in the meditation, stress this idea of exercising our discernment. I just want to also call out that, it's totally all right if we want to be in a space of sitting in the contentment or sitting in the calm. And it's also all right and wonderful when, with intention, we open ourselves up to the undiscovered, and to even coming face to face with sorrow and with disruption and with anger, and asking, and I borrowed this from some teachings that have inspired me from more of a Buddhist tradition than my own Hindu one, but I think the point still stands, asking, how is this, whatever is coming up for me, a friend who has come here to teach me something? So I want to invite everyone to just try that if it's not already a part of your practice, or even if it is, maybe try to go deeper into it. Okay, well, thank you all so much again. And I realize and recognize that this is a difficult time for many of us, for all of us, really, as we are all connected and holding space together, and also recognizing that it impacts us differently. And I want to encourage all of us to really think on a deeper level about what it means to show up, what it means to show up as an activist, what it means to show up as an ally, what it means to decenter ourselves for those of us who are not Black people, and whether we're white or non-Black people of color, or whatever identities we may resonate with, but just recognizing that we have a beautiful opportunity to be in solidarity and to be allies and to do the good work of the Karma Yogi. And also, as part of that, let us recognize how to do that work with humility as instruments, decentering ourselves and focusing the attention and energy where it needs to be. Thank you all so much. I hope to see you next week, if not sooner. Be well, be blessed.
Thank you.